Hey y'all, it's Zack, the legal tech advisor here at Lawyerist, and today I'd like to talk to you about AI, but specifically AI as it relates to document generation and document management. Today I have Scott Kelly with me from PatternBuilder and NetDocuments. Scott was one of the founders of PatternBuilder, which was subsequently purchased by NetDocuments, which in my opinion was a pretty good move on their part. Because Scott and his team have been doing a lot of really cool stuff over there at PatternBuilder. Scott, without me just kind of going down the line of all that, thanks for being with me. I appreciate you showing up and showing us around some of the product.
Yeah, really excited to be back and showing you what we've been working on for the last year. I think last time we chatted, I got to tell you all about PatternBuilder, but today I'm really excited to go into some of the AI capabilities we've recently introduced.
Yeah, and you kind of teased about it last time we talked, that there was some stuff coming, and I believe you when you say that, because every time you have delivered on those things. But today we're talking about PatternBuilder MAX, which is y'all's AI enabled. Well, honestly, let me just let you say what is it? What is PatternBuilder MAX?
Who knows? Yeah, I don't really know. Why are we here?
Right.
So at NetDocuments, we have a new suite of products that we're going live with this year and into next year and into the future called ND Max. That's kind of the overall kind of name. And what it signifies is basically building generative AI capabilities into various products across the NetDocuments product suite to enhance those and enrich those. And our first product that we've enhanced with generative AI, and I would say our tentpole product within the ND Max kind of general offerings, is PatternBuilder MAX. So for those of you who may have tuned into the last episode where I was on Lawyerist, PatternBuilder is a workflow automation tool for lawyers. So lawyers can, and legal professionals of all kinds can go in, and without having to know how to code, they can build out their own workflows for intake automation, document automation, and sort of everything in between. And now we've added to that kind of general no-code toolkit, I think the ultimate no-code tool, which is generative AI. You use words. You don't have to know a programming language to produce what we think are pretty incredible outputs. I mean, we've done a lot of testing over the years with different AI capabilities. And I know there's a lot of folks talking about Gartner hype cycles and, is this really going to deliver on use cases? But in our own testing, and I think what you'll see today, this is a different kind of technology, and it represents what we think a giant opportunity for legal professionals to really scale up the work they can do.
Right. I've talked on the podcast and various other things about using the right tool for the right job. And, generative AI is not going to write my brief. It's not going to unless it's programmed specifically to do that sort of thing. But, it can help us kind of put pencil to paper in a sense. And I feel like this sort of thing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I can be wrong pretty easily, but I feel like this sort of thing is the right tool for the right job, as opposed to some sort of scary, broad, overarching AI. Caveat, that's without having seen it at all yet.
Well, What I would say is, I think everybody in the legal world, or a lot of folks in the legal world, they've now experienced ChatGPT. That kind of first experience with generative AI, where they went in and maybe wrote a haiku about, about being a lawyer, or, said, "Hey, draft me a commercial lease in New York." And I think for that's what I would call kind of the toy phase or the demo phase of generative AI. Where, not to diminish ChatGPT, it's this incredible breakout consumer application that I think has tremendous use cases. But I think it had just hinted at the possibilities in legal, because I think you need to have fit to purpose tooling for legal that gives you the flexibility of a chat GPT to kind of like build out different prompts and experiment with them, but
Hmm.
maybe a little bit more control. So you make sure you're not that lawyer who, God love them, is, citing to the case law that happens to not exist. And so
Right.
there's a big, I think, understanding within the legal profession that we need to have tools that allow us to deliver high quality work product that is based on our precedent that we know
Hmm.
is good, and that reduces the risk of hallucination or errors that a lot of us have come to understand about generative AI.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think that's definitely important to note. And you guys have, it's not like NetDocs or Pattern Builder, for that matter, are just coming out of just the technical area. You practice law yourself. Your co-founder practiced law. This is something that you guys are well aware of. The scary aspects of this, as well as the extremely exciting aspects of all of this. So,
Yeah.
if we can, instead of me just talking around it, can we jump in and kind of see what we're talking about?
Yeah, love to show you around.
Awesome.
What you're seeing right here is what we call the apps tab in NetDocuments. This is
Hmm.
where all of the automations that you've built using Pattern Builder live, and you can run them at any time, whether it's to conduct an intake or assemble documents, or in the case of what I'm going to show you today, actually going through and using generative AI to help you get work done. Now, I'm going to start with a very kind of simple example, and then over the course of going through this, we'll work into some more advanced use cases.
Hmm.
But even you'll see with these simple use cases, you can get tremendous value out of having generative AI paired with your documents directly in the place you're doing work every day, which in this case is NetDocuments.
Hmm.
Um, so let me go to my matters tab. So I'll just click over here to the homepage, and I'm going to go into this matter right here, Three versus Prince George County School Board, and talk for a second about a really common use case we
Hmm.
see, which is in preparation for litigation, a lot of law firms, what they have to do is not only conduct the depositions themselves, but then have someone go through and actually summarize those depositions, pulling out those key data points
Right.
that they care about, so that they can either prepare for the next deposition or the next filing, or at the end of it all for trial itself. And this is something, in talking to law firms and our own customers, that they do all the time. And it often takes, someone like an associate going and looking through depositions for weeks on end, and spending time summarizing.
Right.
But with the magic of kind of generative AI, you can essentially just build an app that allows you to do that in a matter of a couple of minutes. So let's just go here to Deposition Summarizer, and you'll see that my list of apps right here is contextual to the kind of matter I'm in. So um, I'm in a litigation matter, so I'm seeing this deposition summarizer. But if I was doing a real estate matter, I might see a different set of workflows available to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So I go ahead and I click on Deposition Summarizer, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to upload a document from my desktop. And so here we go. We've got the Pennycuff deposition, and I'm going to go ahead and click Open, and then advance to the next page here. Now, before I actually show you the output of this summary, what I wanted to do was actually take a quick peek at the deposition itself, so you could see the kind of data points that we'd want to be pulling out.
Hmm.
So here we go. We're looking at that deposition, and if I was a associate at this firm, what I'd have to do is kind of start reading through and say, okay, we need to pull out the plaintiff, Addie Threet.
Hmm.
We need to pull out the defendants right here. Maybe you need the case number, and so I'm going ahead and copying and pasting this into maybe an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document. The deponent themselves, this Lisa Pennycuff, the date of the deposition, December 14th, 2021.
Hmm.
And then just, continuing to go down. Maybe I have to pull out Kimberly Clary, the court reporter, so we can have that data available for us, at a later date. And then, of course, I have to actually read through the deposition itself and summarize all the material facts and the things that we care about.
Right.
So in this case, this is a deposition for Lisa Pennycuff, and she's the superintendent of the school board and had to make the decision to let go of this particular employee. And so it's just walking through kind of that decision-making process for this employment matter.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had told me that you could get this deposition out of the NetDocuments platform itself.
That's right. So in this example, what I'm doing is I'm uploading a document, and then we're having that get stored in NetDocuments, and then we're also generating a summary from it. But we could just as easily be selecting a document from within NetDocuments and then having, running the generative AI workflow on that. In fact, that's the use case that we see most often, and that we think is what's so powerful about the combination of our platform with generative AI, which is pairing your documents where they are today with generative AI. So you can extract data from documents, you can summarize documents, you can draft net new documents based on old documents, all using this capability. So
Right.
let's actually, see it in action.
Okay.
So here it is. We have the output from the app. And what you're seeing already is some of the kind of power of generative AI, which is we didn't input like the name of the deponent, for example, right?
I didn't
And
get
we
that.
didn't,
Yeah.
and we didn't input the deposition date. It's been pulled out automatically and actually used to name the file. And better yet, it's stored directly in NetDocuments. So we didn't have to take this deposition summary and pull it out or anything like that. And if we go ahead and open that up, let's just take a look at it. You'll see that, all of the information that we want to pull out, the case number, the case name, deponent name, deposition, everything we went through before has been accurately pulled out. Not only that, but we see that we have a summary. In this case, it's a short summary, so it's only 10 lines long. But if you need to be 20 or 30 lines long, you could design the app to do that. And it's tagged with exactly the metadata we want, saved exactly where we want with the security we want within the NetDocuments platform. And so this is a very simple use case, but it shows you that, here's a process that literally takes associates weeks and weeks. And we're able to, in, a matter of minutes, generate an output. And we're doing this for one document, but you could do this against a whole folder of documents. So 100 documents at once. If you wanted to, you could generate these summaries with the click of a button.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I just noticed, page 72, lines 1 through 4. I mean, like that's the site that we have on line 10. So I mean, that's a tremendous amount of power right there.
Yeah. It partly, depends on the whole pipeline you have of, getting the document into the system, making sure it's OCR'd correctly. Those are things that NetDocuments does really well. So we're actually pulling that text out. And then once you have the text, being able to then, feed it to the right model with the right prompt and getting this sort of output.
So speaking of the right model and security, as a lawyer, is my data going somewhere else into a public sphere in this use case?
Yeah, it's a great question. So from day one at NetDocuments, we knew that in order to make this useful to our population of customers, that it had to be designed in a way that put the needs of legal professionals first. So that means a couple things concretely. This is all built using Azure OpenAI. So Microsoft, their kind of enterprise hosting environment that respects things like data sovereignty, GDPR, and is built to be compliant and private. And there are a number of assurances that come along with that infrastructure that we think are really important to our customers. Number one, the data you put into these models is never, ever used to train the models themselves, right? So that's really important. But more than that, we've actually worked closely with Microsoft to receive some special exemptions that mean that any of the inputs and outputs are never monitored by Microsoft. Their employees don't have access to that data, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
0-day retention policy. So these are some very kind of special, accommodations that we were able to work out with Microsoft by explaining the special needs of legal professionals and the
Right.
confidentiality of the data. And so that's a really important foundation that we've been able to build this, incredible engine on top of.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out about this use case is not only are we generating a document here, but NetDocuments allows you to pull out data and actually store it in a database. So if you have like contract extraction use cases or any other kind of data extraction use case, you can actually use generative AI to pull out that information. And in this case, we're storing that information in the depositions table. So here's the automation that we just ran.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see we've pulled out the deponent's name and we pulled out the date of the deposition automatically. And we've stored it in this database so we can potentially reuse it if we want to. So imagine like instant intake. Have someone upload some files that they have that describe their, the facts of their case, and you could just pull that out, and you could automatically have all that information about your client ready for you to, for example, then one-click automate documents from. So really
Mm-hmm.
powerful workflow capabilities, but starting with the extraction of that data.
Well, I think it's important to note, and people may not have picked up on this completely, that deposition app, the Deposition Summarizer app, is an app that was built in Pattern Builder. It is not a thing that comes with Pattern Builder. This isn't Pattern Builder Max. This is what you can do with Pattern Builder Max. And you can do whatever your creative little mind can think of within the capabilities of this Pattern Builder Max.
Yeah, and it's such an important point, and I think it's a perfect transition to actually showing you under the hood of how
Mm-hmm.
this app was built. Because so many of the solutions that we see being launched in kind of the legal tech generative AI space are just that. They're solutions, right? So,
Right.
one company might release a deposition summarizer, that's the product, or they might release a automatic contract playbook tool,
Mm-hmm.
or something for drafting documents. These are all solutions. And so if you want to modify those, if you want to customize them, you have to go to their product team and say, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And, maybe they'll make changes, maybe they won't. The power of Pattern Builder is it's not a solution, it's a toolkit. And so
Mm-hmm.
this deposition summarizer, I kid you not, it took me 30 minutes to build this app. And you can see it's very, very simple. It's just, I added a form field here saying, hey, let's, let them upload a file. And then I just take that and I say, okay, let's grab the text of that file and let's structure a prompt right here. And here's a prompt, right? Anyone can go in, they can deactivate an app, and they can make changes. Like if this is not what you want and you say, actually, I don't care about case number, I could just go here and I could just delete that. And I've changed the whole output of the summary. I could say, I don't want a bulleted list. I want a 3-paragraph list. And I could change that right here. This is the power of being able to actually work with the tool and make changes. And not everybody at your firm has to be a prompt engineer. In fact, no one at your firm has to be a prompt engineer, because one of the really cool things that we're doing at NetDocuments is we have these things called studio apps. So this is an example of a studio app. So when you buy Pattern Builder Max, you also get a number of templates
Mm-hmm.
and templated apps that you can just use right out of the box. And if you want to modify them, or if you want to build 100 more apps addressing 100 more use cases, you can certainly do that, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to. You can just build right here. You can just use these apps right here, or you can build them yourself. It's up to you.
And I think that's important, is that like this app that looks pretty useful is already there, even though it was, it is a tool, or it is a solution on the tool. It is not Pattern Builder.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's no code. I mean, like, you have to know what you're doing in a sense, but I mean, we're not going into DaVinci and figuring out how to use a particular um, large language model or something like that.
Yeah, and what I always tell folks who say, I don't know if I can do this, like I don't know if I can build something like this, it's like, well, do you have anyone on your team who's ever built a document automation? If the answer is yes, I can tell you for a fact, as someone who's done a lot of prompt building and a lot of document automation building, that document automation is like 100 times harder than building a prompt. A prompt is something we're all familiar with, which is it's just a set of instructions to kind of like a smart intern. You're basically saying,
Okay.
hey, do this and then that. And I'll show you actually, this next app I want to show you is actually a pretty complex output. And
Okay.
if you were to try to automate some sort of workflow using traditional coding practices or traditional no coding practices, it would be a tremendously hard thing to do. But with the power of prompting and the power of NetDocuments, it's actually quite straightforward. So let's just go through this use case. A really, really cool use case. Again, we see products out in the market that this is the one thing they do. And this, again, is an app that you can build in a matter of minutes using Pattern Builder. And the idea here is that, oftentimes what, legal professionals are having to do is review documents, right?
Right.
So for example, very common one is, hey, I'm your client. I want to do this deal with XYZ Inc. And they've given me an NDA that I need to sign in order to do this deal with them. But I don't know if I can sign it. So I give it to you, my lawyer, to actually take a look at it and tell me if it meets your standards. And so oftentimes what the law firm would then do is turn around and they look at a contract playbook. This could be like a clause library, or it could literally just be a Word document that has the information about what they're willing to accept, what their standard language is. And then they'd have to apply it to this third-party paper, this non-disclosure agreement. And again, it's a pretty manual process. But with PatternBuilder MAX, you can literally just select the agreement. So I've selected my non-disclosure agreement, and I can actually run any of these apps that are right here in the Word add-in. So not only can you run apps from a workspace or from the NetDocuments web app, but you can actually run them from Microsoft Word. So I'm going to run this contract playbook one, and I'm just going to enter a few pieces of data. Note that I don't have to be a prompt engineer, right? I'm just filling out a form, right? I'm just saying, okay, party represented, Acme Co. The playbook I want to use is our non-disclosure agreement playbook. Maybe I've got a bunch of others. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue here, and let's just wind this a little bit so you can see it. And here are all the policies that we have for non-disclosure agreements. Maybe I want to remove a few of them. I say, you know what? I don't actually care about these ones this time around. Maybe I want to edit some. So I go into, for example, our definition of confidential information, and I could take a look at it and say, yep, that looks good to me. Or I could, go here to duration of confidentiality, and I could, again, take a look and say, okay, this is our policy is that, it should last indefinitely. Let's actually look at the agreement right here. It says 1 year. So that should get flagged, right, when we apply this. And then I just hit continue, and that's it. From there, it's basically just taking our policies and it's applying it to this agreement. And then it's going to output an analysis of what needs to change, what doesn't need to change. And, taking this process that was incredibly time intensive and manual and reducing it to, in this case, 20 seconds. So we see right off the bat, confidential information. This is good. This definition is expansive enough and it meets kind of our traditional, confidential information guidelines. But, we were looking at duration of confidentiality before, and it's properly flagged the fact that this agreement says 1 year, but our language says it shall last indefinitely. And again, if you don't like this output, if you want it to be structured some different way, or, for example, provide red lines where it actually has strike through and bolds for what's inserted, you can actually control that directly through the app builder, and you can build out the prompt that gives you the result that you want.
Well, so, okay, the thing I see here, making sure that the man's not sitting in the box for the automaton. I guess if you go up a little bit, which clause was it? I think it's the confidential information clause here. So the definition of confidential information there, if it were one for one, here as it is in the contract playbook, then I would say, okay, well that's just a sleight of hand, you know. But if I recall going through that, it's not one for one. Can we look at the contract playbook, what the confidential information definition was, just to kind of note that, or I guess highlight that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's actually go to where those clauses are stored. So you could store them as we have for this app in a data table. So
Mm-hmm.
we actually let you store clauses in a data table, or you could just store it in a document in NetDocuments. You could say apply this contract playbook to that document, and it could literally just be a document.
Okay.
We like the kind of more, for the design of this, the more structured playbooks. So I'm going to go to these playbook policies. And let's go to confidential information right here. So this is the clause itself. So we have this standard language,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll notice it's not, a find and replace at all, right?
Right.
There's definitely some overlap, but like, for example, here we say disclose by client name. There is no disclose, by, well, I guess disclose
party and sure. I mean,
yeah.
it's
There's
supposed to be
yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
I mean, like, otherwise it would have flagged it if it wasn't similar
Mm-hmm.
at all. But it is not one for one. It is not,
Yep.
this isn't just well, if it's not perfect, if it's not exact, then it's going to make you review it anyway.
Yep. Exactly. So that's what we're seeing. And I think, it also has this kind of like alternative language if you wanted to build it in. It's really understanding kind of in many cases, the meaning. And the thing is with these workflows, and I think this is what I want to emphasize, is that you can test it, right? So a question we often get from, folks who are thinking about using this kind of technology, whether it's PatternBuilder MAX or just generative AI in general, is, how do I know if it's going to hallucinate or not? Well,
Right.
when you have kind of an open chat interface, you don't really know, because you don't really know what your users, the folks at your firm, are actually
Mm-hmm.
typing into the chat interface. You don't have control over that. But with
Right.
PatternBuilder MAX, you can actually carefully design your prompts and test your workflows again and again and again until you're comfortable with the results. So you could run this playbook, right, against many different NDAs, and you could score it. You could say, hey, 9 times out of 10, it gets everything, right? And so that's the confidence level that we like. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe, it has to be 95% of the time. And so you test against that. And it really allows you to really thoughtfully and carefully deploy only the generative AI workflows that are delivering the results that you want to see.
Right. Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Great. So I just want to walk through, if we have time, maybe just one more use case, and then
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think one of the most powerful things about PatternBuilder MAX is you can leverage the documents you already have in the platform. So, for example, let's say you have a folder like this,
Mm-hmm.
where you store kind of templates or examples of how you've done things in the past, like work product. So here we have a commercial lease summary. Let me go ahead and open that up. And we'll see right here, this, every time we look at a commercial lease, these are the things we like to pull out.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't a prompt at all, right? This is just what we've done in the past. When we've looked at a commercial lease, we kind of write up this memo. And we have this stored in kind of like our examples folder. And now what we can do is actually design an app that the prompt is pretty much just do this to that. So it looks at, the document
Okay.
in NetDocuments, and it says do that to this document using the facts in this document. And it's not a complicated prompt that you're building. It's a very simple one, but because you have your prior precedent, right?
Right.
Because you have your documents, it's very, very powerful because you're leveraging that in your workflow. So let's go ahead and click here on lease memo. This is a workflow that, every time we have leases we need to generate that memo for, we can go ahead and run this. I'm going to go ahead and upload the lease memo right here. So this is commercial lease agreement.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that it's a totally different commercial lease agreement. So it's, let's just go through a few of these. We've got the landlord, airport developers.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the tenant down here, Sour Danfus Company, and then we've got some lease years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a lot of other facts that we'll need to pull out. So let's just go ahead and hit continue right here. And then we're uploading this document. But again, we could say, okay, let's generate this memo based on kind of these form inputs, or we could just say, let's base this memo on a document that's already in NetDocuments. So we're just going to select the commercial lease summary right here, right? So that's actually just pulling directly from NetDocuments,
Mm-hmm.
and just go ahead and hit continue. And what we'll see is that it goes through that lease, and it just generates that memo, but for this document. And you can imagine how this can get really powerful. You could say, hey, let's draft a contract like this, but for this set of facts. Or let's draft a response to this, this demand for evidence like we have in the past, but for these facts. So if you have prior precedent to leverage, the kind of workflows that unlocks for you with generative AI are truly powerful. So let's go here to the commercial lease summary and just take a look.
That's the one. That's the holy grail that I've always been looking for in document automation, is being able to automate a request for admissions.
And you can do that. That's actually one of, what, I didn't include it in this this demo, but it's actually a studio app we're working on today. Because there's so, and you put your finger on, I think, one of the trickiest things with traditional document automation, right? Which is so much of what the documents you want to automate in legal are documents that the facts change so much that there's no way to predetermine the logic of filling it out.
Right.
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 But what you can do is you can predetermine the instructions you would give to a smart human, which is, hey, here are some examples of how I've done this in the past. Here are the new facts. I want you to do, I want you to do that to this.
To this.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I want this thing to look like this.
Yeah. And as you'll see right here, we have this output right here, and it looks now, one thing that generative AI doesn't do very well is preserve word formatting. And so like the bolding on parties and the bolding on premise details, we lost that. But everything in terms of the structure is exactly what we wanted. And something we're working on as kind of a specialist in document automation is eventually getting to the point where you can even preserve some of that formatting as well.
Right.
So I think that's sort of the last mile. But I think even this work product, even if you have to go in and do a little bit of bolding, I mean, talk about the time savings, talk about the way you can scale your practice, especially if you have that precedent, you have those examples, so you can do this to that in every area of law.
Yeah. And I think that last mile is past most finish lines, Yeah. It's a nice to have, but I could have somebody go and put bold on this for 10 minutes instead of going through and looking at the entire contract. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for your time today. Any final questions you have, or anything else you want to learn about PatternBuilder MAX?
How do people get it?
Great question. Yeah. So what I would say is you can go to our website, NetDocuments.com, and you'll see all sorts of information about ND MAX and PatternBuilder MAX. And a couple clicks later, you can get to a form where you can fill in your interest, and we'll put you on the list. We are expecting to go to general availability sometime in October. We already have a number of the largest law firms in the world who are using PatternBuilder MAX and are like really seeing incredible results. And so we've had a long period of kind of testing and gathering user feedback, and we're ready, to sort of release this more generally to anybody who's interested.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Scott, as always, I appreciate your time. This is a fantastic thing to see. And yeah, thanks for showing us around PatternBuilder MAX, and which is, I guess, is it fair to say it's part of the ND MAX family, or just straight up NetDocuments family?
It's part of both families. It's
Okay.
it's yeah. So
it's welcome everywhere. Fair enough. All right, Scott. Well, thank you very much. And I look forward to having you back on, talking more about PatternBuilder in the future.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks.